Oh, greetings. What's up? It's Deborah. I'm so excited to be here with my dear friend Gracienne, and I'm really excited about the conversation we just started about how we can welcome differences. That's this week's topic. Actually, technically, I got my steps swapped. It was supposed to be next week, but that's okay. We're going with it. So I wanted to bring in someone, another fellow woman of color who's worked in the corporate machine, who understands what it feels like from many different angles, not just gender and race, but from many different angles to feel like one is different. And, particularly why this is so important in this community is because we're all Mavericks here in some level of development, and we're all disruptors. So we don't do so well when we have to follow strictly to the status quo. So we're all, in a sense, quote unquote, different. Mm-hmm. So how do we encourage inclusivity and the welcoming of differences? And how do we also kind of heal from the past messaging that we got that it wasn't okay to be different? Because we've all gotten that. Every one of us has.
Yes.
So, so would you please just briefly introduce yourself, Gracienne?
Hi, Deborah. So happy to be here. And thank you so much. So for those of you who new to me, I've been in the group a little bit, writing here and there. My name is Gracienne Jean-Pierre. I'm a trained family nurse practitioner, lifestyle medicine consultant, and I'm also a healer. So I help my client change their health, change their lifestyle so they reclaim their well-being. So really, truly, that's another thing. I had to be awakened that I have this gift of a healer because I thought I was different. Where am I thinking out of the box? As a nurse, it's like, okay, what are you using your intuition to heal people, to help people heal themselves?
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. Ooh, that's a juicy topic. I think we need to come back and have a part 2 where we just talk about that, just the feeling and I mean, the more awakened to your own intuition you are, the more you realize that we just have a whole bunch of messed up and broken systems that are completely out of alignment with how human nature is. But yes, that's a different topic.
Different topic. Yes.
I mean, if you all haven't connected with Gracienne, you should. It's always an honor and refreshing to speak with her. So today we're talking about differences. I'm just going to give a really short kind of background for myself, and then maybe Gracienne, you can do the same. Mm-hmm. My background was, my dad's Nigerian. If anybody knows anything about Nigerians, it's like, doesn't matter where on the planet, and you will find us everywhere on the planet. You go to the South Pole, you will see some skis, some seals, and you'll see some Nigerians. We're all over. We're everywhere. There's a nook, cranny, and crevice. You'll see a Nigerian. However,
for sure,
the thing about us is that Nigerians highly value education. So my dad was always like, his father, sold his business so that my dad could get an education in the United States, and that gave him his last penny to go to the US and get an education. Now he wanted his son to be a doctor, and my dad was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. So he ended up becoming a chemical engineer, and he worked in what used to be, I forget, it used to be Dow. I don't know what it is now. But anyway, he worked in a very large chemical company for a little bit. And then he realized, this isn't really doing anything for me. My dad was absolutely a maverick. And so he started his own business when I was 3. And he basically took care of our family with just that business. Mm-hmm. And then, he traveled overseas. He was a missionary, and he still used his business to support himself. And when he finally sold it many years later, he sold it for quite a bit. So he kind of planted the idea of being an entrepreneur in me. Mm-hmm. But he was like, you've got to go to school. You have to go to college. You have to get a good degree in something. Let's not play this staying home and, just graduating high school and getting a job at the store business. No. Yeah. So he made me go to college. I went to college. I majored in engineering and architecture. Those were my 2 passions. And when I graduated, and even when I was in school, I did some internships at an architecture firm and an engineering firm. And I was like, But I was like, maybe it gets better once you graduate and now you're working full time for real and you'll get trained on the job. Yeah, no, I struggled for 12 years before I finally gave up on corporate America because I was a horrible employee. I will say it. I'm F minus when it comes to being an employee. I'm not a good employee. I don't do rules well. And one thing that I kept finding, I was just saying this to you a moment ago, was like there was a point in time after my like first job that I tried so hard to make it work as a structural engineer, and I failed horribly. And when I was laid off, I actually asked, I was like, is there a way to get like tested for like, I don't know, like dyslexia of a different form in my brain? Like what's going on? Why does my brain not work like everyone else's?
Yeah.
And you know, it was a godsend is that the people that I asked who were like the employee helpline, they were really mean to me. They were like, well, you know, this isn't our problem. You need to go get therapy. I was like, okay. So I went and got some therapy.
Yeah.
That didn't do anything for me. I was sitting there listening to therapists, like almost analyzing the therapist.
Yes.
What's going on with me? Why is my brain like this? For years. And what actually did it for me was being in a toxic marriage and having that constant like judgment, feeling judged like at a very deep and shameful level, to the point where it was like, I was like, I don't even know why I'm alive right now. Why am I existent? I'm so different. And it was like, okay, well, I'm not dead yet. So let me figure out how to make use of this weirdness of mine. That was literally my awakening. It was not by choice. It wasn't bold, brave Deborah who just, it was like, it was either that or death. I was literally at the point where I was like, there was just no juice for me in living, because whatever it was I was trying to do to follow other people's instructions or follow their expectations, it just wasn't working out for me.
Yes.
And I was like, but I know there would be times, and this is the good thing about my brain, is that there would be times when I would just be in flow and excited and pumped, and people would be pumped, and we would all, and you know, all these crazy things happen. And I'm like, what is going on in those moments? So I started studying and analyzing those moments when I would have amazing conversations. They were always people I was teaching. And it was always like, I didn't have someone else's script. I was going from the soul. I was allowing the message to come through me. And when I realized that, I said, oh my goodness, I am a teacher, but not of another institution. I have something that's trying to come through me that the institution isn't teaching.
Yes.
And I need to break the rules and find this. And this was my starting point in getting started with this process. So I say all of this to say that being a part of feeling different and feeling unwelcome because of differences has been a theme throughout my life. I feel very passionately about it. And that's why I created this community, is to help people to feel accepted and welcome, as long as we are all respecting of each other's rights and dignity. I want everyone to feel welcome to be themselves in this community, because I know the pain of not feeling like I could be myself.
Yeah. And you know, Deborah, your story is just so enlightening, because you know, I have my own story, how I become awakened and say, okay, I'm different and I just have to accept it. But it took me quite a bit. So my background is, I was born in Haiti. So I was born in Haiti. My father also was an engineer, engineer, and my mother was a housewife. So my father got really sick, and so we came to America for his healthcare, because healthcare in Haiti is not as good as here. So when we came, my mom and my father came first, and then unfortunately my father passed away here. And so my mom, being a housewife, and she's like, okay, I go back, I don't really have that much. So she went back and I'm an only child, so we came back here to America, to Miami. And it was back in the 1980s, like early 80s. And at that time in Miami, a lot of Haitians were coming from the boat. And so to imagine, I was 12 years old, and imagine the stigma and also the non-inclusion, because not only that I had an accent, I was Black, and I'm from Haiti. So truly, in everything in my life was always a struggle. So I was Black, I was Haitian, and I didn't speak English. And then also I think differently, and I was different. And I was always, I accumulate information really quick. So I could absorb a lot of information. So in school, even though I didn't speak the language, I learned really quick the language, and I also accelerate academically. So that's also created some kind of issue. So moving forward to college and high school, I always was totally different. I was totally different of the way I approach people, the way I think. So I always thought something was wrong with me. And then I started in corporate America, and I always was the only brown girl in the class. And I was always only the brown girl at the meetings. And I was young too. I graduated high school very young. So I was 16. So add all those things together, I had to really struggle until I got sick, because I was always nervous, because I felt like I wasn't accepted in any way and anyhow. So even what broke me down was corporate America, working for big corporation and healthcare, is that no matter how hard you try, you could never move up that ladder, or you're the only person. And it's sometime you will find one person that would be out there to help you fight, that is a different color, that would see the bright sunshine in you and say, okay, this person could do it, let me help to push them. But even with that, they always give that person a issue. So really, I truly understand until about 6-7 years ago, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to show up as I am. And to be honest with you, it's still a work in progress, because I tell you, from the time we met of beginning of this year till now, I already have I evolve in some way, because I would never come out and tell people I'm a healer. And I could see people and look at people and differentiate what's going on with them without touching them, or things like by just listening to them, because I was still afraid of how mainstream would accept me as a went to school, got a degree, and now I'm talking about all this stuff. But it is a journey, and I'm happy you create this space for us to be able to talk freely about it, because right now it's just I'm letting it flow. I'm not holding anything back.
Yes, I love it. And actually, I really wanted to ask you, let's talk a little bit about some of the barriers, right? So if we want to create inclusion, we do have to consider what are some of the common barriers to inclusion, true inclusion. Because I know, for example, when you were talking, I heard so many parallels. You're like the only brown girl in the room. So one of them can be, and I know for me, I was always a diversity hire. I was always a diversity hire. So here's the thing. That's supposed to be great. And I used to shame myself about this all the time. Like, oh my goodness, I'm the only Black person I've got to represent, and I've got to be, this great. But a couple of things were here. I wasn't really accepted. I was just there because they needed to look like they, literally it's like a whole bunch of white guys and then me. That was always the picture, no matter what department I was in, whether I was in construction or in engineering or in architecture. Yeah. And couple times you might have a couple brown guys, like Indian, but most of the time it was just all white and me. So what happened is, even though I was working so hard, one thing I would say is a barrier is unspoken rules, right? There's all these little things that people are supposed to know when they come into the corporate world. And they're not things that are necessarily even to do with the actual work that they're doing. There's things like, oh, you never say this when the boss is around, or you never do that kind of, and if you don't know, you straight just don't know, right? So it's not even about even being promoted, although that's another one, but it's even about really understanding how to have influence within that environment. It's like a whole study. You could straight go to school for 10 years just to learn how to operate in corporate in a way that you can get what you need to get done. It's crazy. There's so much red tape and bureaucracy and these things going on. And I know the nursing field is horrible. We just talked with Denise last week, and that he was shedding some light on some stuff, and I'm so for me, I would say as someone who works with others, whether I'm hiring a contractor or I'm collaborating with someone, like let's get rid of the unspoken rules.
Yes.
All those little, felt but not said that, makes things awkward, but you can't put your finger on why, you're trying to be like, you just don't know what you don't know. So I would say that that's one barrier. How about you? What do you think?
To tag into that unspoken rule is I think part of it is not planning. Because let me give you this analogy. If you're making a soup, okay, you're going to need onion, you're going to need all the spices, you're going to need all this. So you make the soup. But let's say you make the soup and you forget to add the onion, but you're drinking it right now. And then you're like, okay, let me add the onion. The onion still, you're not going to taste the soup. So it's not planned. It's unspoken rule. And then they don't plan how to include you. It's just a last minute thought. Oh, we did not have, let's call so-and-so and add them to the agenda, bring them in the room. But when you get there, you're like,
yeah,
you were not in that soup before. Yeah. You were not the ingredient they were adding.
We're the onions.
So the soup didn't taste the way it's supposed to taste, because it's just like you are like, okay, so what am I supposed to do in this mix here? So I think it's planning and unspoken, because if you plan, then you'll know you will tell the person what to expect and how and what to do, in a sense.
Yeah. And I think that also is preceded by actually seeing the person as an equal.
Yes.
Is equally as valuable to the system or to whatever you're doing as anyone else. And that's the stuff that you can't legislate, can't, dictate through policy. It really has to be something because everything is taught, right?
Yeah.
When children come out of the belly, they don't know color, they don't know biases, they don't know any of that. It's all taught. That's why some kids, stare if they see a gay couple, and other kids, it's like, oh, I have two dads or I have two moms. It's normal for them because that's just the way they grew up. So it's not really about, being a human or being a person, but it's just really about what is taught. So whatever is taught can also be replaced with a different teaching, right? So I feel like that's why it's so important to me. The work that I do is like to open people's eyes in a completely non-judgmental way. It doesn't matter what side of any fence you're on, doesn't matter to me. I just want everyone to see that we're all one. We're all equally as valuable. We're all equally as important, no matter what. Whether I was reading something on LinkedIn the other day about this gentleman who is an advocate for people with disabilities, disability, but the way he writes, it's so profound. You don't know even what his disability is, because it's like focusing on the ability instead of the disability. So a lot of times, what we can do is like, if we know something, share the something. Right? We were talking about the fact that a lot of people just don't even know that something is biased or, separatist. And I'm not a big fan of any movements, whether it was Me Too or Black Lives Matter. I'm just a person, like, I'm for all human beings. I'm for this. And I'm for the planet, and I'm for every living organism that shares the planet, whether it's an animal, a plant, a human being, the ocean, whatever it is. I'm for everybody. I'm not for any one thing. And the way that I understand it is that with the rebel movement, it's necessary to break down the things that are not working. What I bring with, and what I encourage people to bring with the Maverick energy, is the focus to create what we actually want. So both are necessary. It's kind of like a rehab, right? Like, you tear down the old building, then you've got to like lift it out, right? That's really like the rebel energy, is like, we're going to break it down, demo it, and take it out. But then you need people to come in and actually create what is wanted so that the building is beautiful, right? And if no one does that, you just have like a nasty lot with cats. You need both. So I'm on the side of the rebuild crew of saying, what is it that humanity really needs? Let's look at it holistically, because and I know you feel me on this one. We're holistic thinkers, and when we can see, okay, water, if everyone drinks water, they're going to not only be hydrated and not have diabetes, but they'll also lose weight and they'll also sleep better, and all these other things will be cured by the one thing of drinking more water, right? So you don't have to go give them 16 prescriptions for all these different conditions. We might just tell them to go drink more water.
Yes,
right?
definitely.
So
yes.
It's that holistic perspective of like, how do we heal? Is, for me, my message is about like raising the awareness that we are all connected. Now let's operate from that mindset, because we're going to see a whole different set of options and solutions that we would not see if we're operating from, let me change legislation.
Yes, and that's why I tell people, I said, when you look at somebody else, you're looking at them and you're looking at yourself, and to start from your heart, because sometimes we stuck here in the brain, and the brain telling you stuff that happened way back into the conscious mind when we were 7, and now just tap into your heart, because it's really, you have the answer within you, and how to approach people and how to make people feel comfortable. And it just, you have the ability, you have the creativity to create that world that you really want to be in and involve in and co-create with other people. And that's the beautiful things, when you could get together with people and co-create beautiful things without thinking about all the restriction that we put in ourselves,
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about barriers that we can be aware of?
I think, and also the going back to that planning that I was talking about, is to, be the change maker. Just because you are in a group of people that have certain belief. I remember I told you those people that are always trying to help me, they were the change maker. They saw in me something that the other folks didn't see, and they were always trying to move that flow and keep me up in front of the line. It's just create opportunity for people. When you are in a place of power, or a place of making decision makers and things like that, just think out of the box, tap into your heart, tap into your intuition, and bring other people into the mix. Because when you're looking at nature, because I always go back to nature, and you're looking at a forest, they have tall trees, they have little trees that are like this, they have all kinds. Just think out of the box, bring in different people, because all those different people will add a different flavor, a different taste to that product. And it's just amazing when things like that happen.
I love it. I mean, you and we're on the same page, because I always go back to nature as well. I'm always looking at for examples in nature, and how synergy works, and how how things move and interact. And it's very much the inspiration for a lot of the work that I do. And I so agree with you about the fact that, this community, the goal of this community is that it's a diverse community, that it has global villagers, it has Mavericks, it has rebels, it has outcasts, because all of us, we've been there, or we're headed, we're all a part of the same cycle, right? We've all been through the earlier stages if we're at a later stage. And so the idea is, especially when people are at global villages, they're very much about generosity and helping up the next group. And I'm like, that's because they get it at that point. They get the fact that they're here. We're all here, really, truly. We don't have to wait till we get there, but we all are here to help each other up in whatever our unique gift is. And there's no two people that have the exact same gift. So you don't have to worry about she got my gift already, so I'm a dead weight here. No, we all have something very, very valuable to contribute to any conversation. Yes. And as long as the challenge that we have in our world of stage 2, stage 3 is that many people have lost their connection to their own dignity, and thus the dignity of others. So it's that's the one caveat that I always remind people is we want to make sure that we respect our own dignity and the dignity of others and the rights of others. And I'm hoping and praying that at some point in time, I don't even have to say that anymore, because the community is so amalgamated that we all understand that, and that people newly coming in kind of get brought into that culture of inclusivity and diversity. But now, I just put that caveat there, because if we can all help each other out and say, I may not be good at a lot of things, but I rock in this thing and I can bring this to the table.
Yes.
I mean, that's just so beautiful. When everyone does that, we all bring our gifts to the table. We now have rich, deeply valuable in community from which to support ourselves, from which to encourage. And I mean, that's really how every village is set up. I mean, every properly running village is set up with elders, there's kids, there's parents, there's all these people in between, and everyone comes to the market and they barter. I have rice, you have sugar cane. This is how life works, where you're not running to chase after a dollar in a corporate ladder and then hopefully maybe one day retire when you're old and you're beat up to then enjoy life. No, like life can be enjoyed every day if we know how to support one another within a healthy community. And that's really what I want to demonstrate here in this group. And I believe in so much.
Yes. And Deborah, I could tell you, when I come into your community, I always feel welcome. And I always feel like it's just like coming from a long journey, because I think Facebook could be a long journey. You scroll and then there's a fresh water of creek, because it's just water dripping. So for me, that's how I see your community, and I thank you for that, for creating that space, because it is right now at this moment that we are living currently, we need to have community. People are so lonely, and we need to be in places where we feel accepted and when we could speak our mind. And if something is not correct, somebody could give us their opinion and we could take it or leave it. But because we all need to have guidance, and guidance comes in so many different ways. And as you said, I don't like to be told what to do, but if something is coming from somebody's heart and I feel like it's really coming from your heart and the deep part of your heart, I could feel it. And we all have that sense of feelings, that sense of we could all do it. So to be in that place, and it's a wonderful place to be in a community where you could feel and accept when people talk to you and advise you. So I really love what you're creating here. And even I was talking to my little daughter, she's 11. And she's different. I could already see that. And, my husband at one time was talking to me a couple weeks ago, he said, we have to prepare her because she is different. She's think different. She's very, and I'm so grateful that I went through that process, because right now I could prepare her. I don't know how well we'll do it, but I'll plant the seed that she doesn't have to, because, she has to go through her own journey to understand who she is as a person. So, but yeah, it's really good to have community like this. And because sometimes that could save people a lot of money going to the psych, and by you sitting there and analyzing the psychologist.
Oh yeah, don't get me started on my days. And I was very diligent about it too, because I like to always make sure that I'm not just being stubborn. So I went to several years before I was like, you know what, this is So in closing, is there anything else that you would like to share with entrepreneurs, with business people, about how we can be more inclusive and encourage the welcoming of differences in what we do?
Yeah, I think, I think number one thing is to educate yourself about your publics and who are you serving and how they come and how they present themselves. And I will make that short. Like in the healthcare industry, there's a huge discrepancy between minority and our counterpart. And you see it in research, you will see it in drug development, you see it on all aspects. So I always tell people, if you're going to put a product out there, you're going to teach people, you're going to do people, study a little bit of who are you offering this product or this services to, because it is to be culturally sensitive. It is so important, and culturally inclusive. It's not, it's so important when you are trying to connect with people.
Yeah. Do you have any resources on that? Because I would love to see some more of your stuff if you have anything on that.
I don't have it off of my head, but I read a lot about, there's a nurse author that talk about the theory of culturalism and how to incorporate people in healthcare. I could put it in the comments later, but it's to understand people culture and understand people where they come from. Because if you're looking at the United States, somebody from the deep South where I am right now, and when I used to live in DC, when you're teaching them about something, you would teach them totally different in a customer setting, because there's two, even though we still from the United States, but different culture, different way to present things to people.
Yes. Please do share that in the comments. And I think, my days in missionary work and so forth, like I think I don't actually consciously do that anymore. Like it's kind of like already wired. I change the way I speak depending on who I'm speaking to, but I don't even know when I'm doing it when I watch the recording. So it's nice to have some resources. I'm sure others here in the group would appreciate that.
Oh, wonderful. I'll be happy to drop some in there, because we are a multicultural household. My husband is German. I'm from Haiti, and my daughter is born here. So it's a melting pot, certain things.
You speak French and German too?
French, German, and understand Creole. So it's just,
That's awesome. I am so jealous. I wish I had that ability to have. I mean, I can speak a few languages too, but they're things I learned in school. It's not the same as having it native to you, when you learn it from parents.
Yeah. It's wonderful. Oh, Deborah, thank you so much. It was really fun being with you.
Yeah, and also share in the comments how we can stay connected to you, learn more about what you do. I know you have a whole thing about wellness and health, and we didn't go into that today, but definitely want to be able to support you and learn from you more in your platform. So please, if you don't mind sharing that in the comments, I would really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you so much. It is such a pleasure, because well-being is part of inclusion.
Yes, I agree. And when everyone has the ability to be well and healthy, and which unfortunately also has, gender and race lines that are drawn, we have food deserts and so forth. When we're able to have that be something that everyone has access to, again, that's also really, really important. So.
Yeah, it will change the world. I mean, if really we are also connected. Until it just gives me the chills, because when I think about how connected we are, and it's like we need to have an awakening that we are connected. We're not going nowhere without each other.
Yes, absolutely. All righty. Well, we've come to the end of our session today. Thank you so much. I'm really honored and glad that we were able to have this conversation. Please, if you guys are watching the replay, go ahead and show some love and ask whatever questions you have for Gracienne. And of course, I'm always here to answer questions as well. So until next week, have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah.